Good day, everyone. This is a very special interview on West Coast Styles. My name is Shad. As many of you know, the site is not just about hip hop music, but one which discusses and analyzes culture as well. Therefore, we'd be foolish to overlook the impact that marijuana has had on everyone, both medically and socially, the former being why I took an interest. So while we have discussed strands and weed products on West Coast Styles from some of our favorite rap personalities, it would be irresponsible journalism to omit others who are contributing to this always evolving movement. All that being said, it is my pleasure and privilege to be speaking with adult industry legend and new CBD businesswoman, the lovely Stormy Daniels. Thank you so much for joining me. It's an honor to be speaking with you.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting.
Yeah. So before we get to your CBD line and everything and how that will help others, I want to applaud you on how you were very active in helping those adversely affected by Hurricane Ida. What was that experience like, and what exactly were some of the things that you did?
It was pretty intense. So I'm originally from here. I'm from Louisiana. I've lived through many hurricanes. I was not here for Katrina. I was actually living in LA at the time working for Wicked Pictures. And I currently live in a 100-year-old brick haunted church with my co-star of my paranormal show, Spooky Babe. So we kind of made the executive decision to stay because we knew the building survived the last hurricane. And it got really scary, like it was supposed to be a category 3 and then it was a category 4. And then at the last minute, they're like, no, the winds are going to be stronger than Katrina. And there was a moment where I was like, oh shit, did we fuck up? We should have got out of here. But I'm so glad that we stayed because the mayor of the city, and I have no problem calling this bitch out, she didn't order a mandatory evacuation. And so a lot of people that like suffered after the storm did so because they couldn't leave town because they couldn't afford it, because their insurance wouldn't cover necessities or hotel rooms or travel or whatever, because it wasn't a mandatory evacuation. And yes, the city did spend over $1 billion, redoing the pump system and the levees, and they did hold. New Orleans, the city itself didn't flood. Most of the real issues happened after the fact, because immediately after the storm, we had a huge heat wave and we didn't have power. We didn't even have power in my house for 8 days. Some people didn't have power for 2 weeks. And further down the bayou, there's still no power, down in the bayou parishes like Flourish and all of that. So there was this whole set of people that were stuck here that didn't leave, and they died of starvation or exposure, or heat exhaustion. And FEMA wasn't here, the mayor wasn't here, nobody was doing anything. So we just, the next morning, we hit the ground running. All these restaurants and bars and people that I know personally had this food in their freezers or their restaurant, walk-in coolers and things that was going to spoil. And so the local restaurants, the local communities really stepped up and just donated everything. And we were up at sunrise making breakfast burritos and delivering them to the old folks' homes and people who decided to stay but weren't prepared for what happens after the fact. There's, I've read, I think there was like 7 or 8 deaths that were directly attributed to people who couldn't afford to leave because it wasn't a mandatory evacuation. And a lot of the insurance companies were like, it's not mandatory, so we're not covering your hotel. So those people stayed. And for me, I was able to use my, verification on social media, my huge followers on Instagram and Twitter to just send out messages. And every single person we helped in that first 7 or 8 days was just someone who directly messaged me and said like, hey, I had a woman in Spain, I think she was a exchange student, I think. And she messaged, hey, my mom's phone battery died 2 days ago because they haven't been power. Can somebody go check? And so I brought that woman food. There was another lady who's, she wasn't on assisted living. She wasn't a veteran, so she wasn't really on any list, but she was in a wheelchair that lost power. And so she'd been stuck in it. So every single person, we do huge numbers? No, I think we fed about 80 to 100 people a day, which is nothing compared to what a huge organization could do, but at least I was able to directly respond to each and every person that messaged me. And it was brutal. I had the luxury of having a car that I could charge my phone in and but people were shooting at each other at gas stations and, it was intense. And I just think that calls it was very eye-opening because a lot of these people just seem to be forgotten, and it was very unfortunate. And that's my rant, and I'm done.
No, that's fine. Feel free. This is a free space. This is a platform to speak your mind. Don't ever worry about that. So what inspired you to get into the CBD business?
So interestingly enough, I'd heard about CBD for many years. I just was like, oh, this is the next thing. Didn't really put much stock into it, if I'm completely honest with you. Thought it was kind of snake oil, didn't, kind of closed-minded about it, I have to admit. And 3 years ago, I had a horseback riding accident. I compete horses, I train, I was jumping my horse and I came off and I sprained my pelvis, which hurts worse than if you break it. So basically the ligaments gave out and it made this noise. Bruh, my vagina slammed shut. Which ironic since I'm Stormy Daniels. So I sprained my pelvis and I fractured my spine in 2 places, and it was excruciating. There's nothing more terrifying than like telling your leg to move and it won't. Like it was probably one of the scariest things I've ever experienced. So the doctors at the emergency room and all that said, you're going to be in a wheelchair for a little while and crutches. It's going to be a very long time before you're ever able to walk normally again, if ever. And I don't really like pain pills. They make me itch. So 3 or 4 days into being absolutely miserable in my house, a friend of mine who has a CBD company was like, let me send you some stuff. And at this point, I'm like, I'll try anything. And within 2 days of starting what she had sent me, I was all out of the wheelchair, painfully hobbling around on crutches. And 10 days later, I was back to riding my horse. Much to the dismay of my doctor, I was able to ride and stuff again, but on a much more intimate level, I guess. I was trying to figure out how to apply the CBD cream to where I was injured, like my pelvis. So if I can just be graphic for a second, my friend was like, put that shit on a tampon and shove it up there. And I was like, wait, that's safe? She's like, well, it's edible. So yeah. So I did that. And I think that's what really, really helped. But the strange thing that most people don't know is that I was in the middle of battling cervical cancer at the time. And I went back in 3 weeks later for my surgery and they couldn't find it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I accidentally, I believe, kind of fixed that. And now that it's been 3.5 years and it hasn't come back. And this is something I was dealing with since I was 19. It would go away and then kind of come back and I'd have to have like a biopsy. And it was like this whole thing. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to sit here and say CBD cured it. But there's nothing more disturbing than being at the gynecologist with your feet in and they keep calling other people in like it's a spectator sport. I was like, you're peeking around, what's going on down there?
Yeah.
And the nurse was like, what did you do? Did you see another doctor? Did you do something? I told her what I did. And she was like, you're not the only patient I've seen that has the same story. They can't back it up. They can't put the medical claim. I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying absolutely that's what did it. That's the only thing that I did and it's gone. And I know that the doctor told me I wasn't going to be able to walk for several weeks or months. And I was back to competing my horse, less than a month later. I was riding 10 days later. So I was like, oh, there might be something to this. I wanted to kind of get involved. Well, then I started having fans come up to me at events, my book signings, strip club appearances and whatnot, and being like, hey, I bought your CBD pre-roll or I bought your stuff. I want to support. I was like, that's not mine. It has my name and picture on it. So I did some research and there's actually a strain of CBD called Stormy Daniels. Mm-hmm. Well, I own my name and my image. So I was like, this is not cool. Luckily, letters were sent out, all this stuff. And I was like, well, maybe this is a gift from the universe for a way for me to get involved. And luckily my partner, Brian, hit me up. I've known him for 20 years and we just made a deal to, hey, this stuff is out there. It's great quality. I might as well use my platform. And so now we've launched, this product together. And so far it's been really great. And I'm pretty proud about it, and I don't personally use cannabis. I don't smoke marijuana. I am the stereotypical like pothead. Like if I smoke, I'm in your, less than 30 minutes later, I'm in your pantry like a drunk raccoon eating everything and then I pass out. Like I am the stereotypical stoner. I don't smoke, but I do have friends, including my daughter's father, who cannot function if they don't smoke or take marijuana in some form. So I've never known anybody to commit a violent crime or OD on it. And I'm just, I've seen how it's changed people's lives, people that I know that went to fight in Desert Storm and came back, people who had morning sickness when pregnant. And it's just such a better alternative. It's natural and I support it. And I think that using my voice and saying how much I support this and I don't even smoke kind of speaks volumes. Like I said, my assistant, it has bad anxiety. If he doesn't smoke, I don't want to be around him.
It sounds like you were in pain, after the accident, but was there any slight hesitation to be like, oh, I have a bad reaction to cannabis, but I still, should take this or try this to get better, see if I can feel better?
Honestly, no. I was in such pain and like gave zero fucks at that point because I was like, hey, the good news is I couldn't walk, so I couldn't get up and go to the refrigerator.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's see, and now you're not just a name attached to this product, but it sounds like you're very hands-on in the development of all of it. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of like the different things that this product line offers and so forth?
Yeah, so we're still coming out with stuff. We have the flower and all that because that was already grown and my name was used. You know what? I'm just very lucky that whoever decided to make this strain and use my name, even though they did it without my permission, at least it's good. Everybody, like, I'd be so much more fucked off if it was shitty weed. But you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a blessing that it turned out to be really cool and like really good quality. Obviously, a lot of people don't like to smoke. It's not exactly healthy to smoke, although that's a preferred method. So we do have pre-rolls. We are going to sell flower for people who want to like smoke it. But I was pretty adamant about having alternatives to that. So we have gummies because those are my favorite. And then we have a new product. It's called Frequency. And it's a women's stimulation. And you put it on your clit. It's got CBD in it. And you can use it internally, externally, whatever. And like I said, it's really helpful for women who want that a little bit of stimulation, but who may be suffering from like menopause or endometriosis because it has a little bit of pain relief. So I'm pretty excited about that product. Looking for people who want to test drive that with me. But I know that we have a tincture coming out and I don't know what's next. The lab is cutting edge. It's very cool. We have a German scientist. That sounds really terrifying. But he's kind of a badass up in our lab in Baton Rouge. And, I won't put my name on just anything because I feel like so many women look up to me and want to support. And that's why I shut down that original line, like don't put my name on stuff that people think I endorse. I'm very, very careful about what I do.
Sounds like it was an amicable discussion.
This one was. Everything's in development. I have more ideas than I could possibly ever do. Every day I think I have a new $1 million idea. I don't sleep very much. Maybe I should take my own CBD products. But I have a lot going on and these things take time. But the best place to, be kept current is just go to the website, perfectstormy.com, and you'll see. And I know I just did a branding deal last week. So we're actually going to have some brick and mortar stores, which I'm pretty excited about. I think we're going to do 10. Definitely one here in New Orleans, definitely one in Baton Rouge because that's where I'm from. I know we're doing one in Tulsa, and I don't think we've decided on the other cities yet, but that's going to be really cool. So people can come in and get the products, and I'll make appearances there and be willing to speak with people and explain, endorse it and fight the good fight, I guess.
No, that's awesome. Now, this is a very salesy question, but what makes your product stand out from the competition?
I think the biggest thing is let's be honest. Part of it's just my name, and it's not just the use of the word Stormy Daniels, but I have found that people are way more comfortable, sometimes too comfortable, talking to me about private things. I don't know if it's, I've had women come up to me in the grocery store and ask me about anal sex. Like, I'm totally not kidding. There's something about being a porn star for so long and that people have seen you in the most intimate situations that they think in their head, there's not anything I could possibly ask or tell this woman to offend her or embarrass her. So people are more comfortable talking about other uses for CBD. Now we all know CBD can help you sleep. We all know that it can relieve anxiety for like the sexual awareness and wellness and the other uses for it. And how do I just told you put it on a tampon. I can't imagine somebody being comfortable enough having that conversation necessarily with just another CBD brand ambassador or another store. So I think it comes with like this very accessible intimacy of being able to talk to me and have very real conversations. So there's that. And then, like I said, I've been burned so many times. Like I've done so many deals and didn't get paid, or didn't, people use my name and likeness without my permission. So for me to actually sit here and be like, no, this is good. I've done my research. My partner in the business, Brian, I've known him for over 20 years. So I really feel like there's a level of trust and accessibility that comes with mine.
Yeah, we gotta give a shout out to Brian too. He's been super helpful on my end too, getting all of this coordinated and everything. That's a really interesting point you make about kind of intimate accessibility. I really like the way you word that. It's almost like and again, of course, there's a level of professionalism and respect that's just, should be followed, which unfortunately not everybody does. But I do feel like too, people probably do feel a little more comfortable talking to you about more intimate and personal things, not only because of what you do in the porn world, but just because of like what they do, watching you in porn.
Right.
If someone, has masturbated to one of your films, that's a different type of, rapport, if you will, than like watching somebody play basketball.
Right. It strips away, like they've seen me in the most intimate situations. I saw my butthole on a Jumbotron once. It was horrifying, but you know what I mean? So it just comes with a level of accessibility that another celebrity might not, have. And I'm also, aside from all the adult industry stuff, which does kind of make me an expert on the sexual wellness products that we're doing, like the frequency and the lube and stuff like that. Let's just take all that off the table. Other than the adult industry, what am I most known for? It's for doing the right thing and being honest. So if I'm telling you this is something that I endorse, this is something that I support, this is a product that I think is good, I think it comes with a level of people going, oh yeah, she's gotten a lot of hot water because she won't lie. So my credibility is at stake here, and I've worked so hard to defend it, with the political stuff. Let's just address the orange elephant in the room. The president of the United States very publicly called me a liar, and that's just been this uphill thing. You think for 1 second I'm going to undo all that pain, all that money, all that heartache, all that time, all that struggle for the last 5 years or whatever, just to say oh, buy this product, it's good. No, I'm going to be honest up front with the people who supported me and my fans.
One of the things I've admired about you in that whole situation was just, speaking truth to power and, not, backing down and just, holding your guard. And I can imagine, I read your book, full disclosure, great book.
Thank you.
And just given some of the content in there, I don't want to give too much of it away for people that haven't read it, but it sounds like there were some very, intimidating moments when you could have gone another direction or could have gone another way, but you opted not to. So I think that's great.
Thank you.
In addition to your work as an adult performer, writer, and director, and all the CBD stuff, I've found the work that you've done with people like Joy King and Joan Irvine interesting too. How did all that start with the RTA and ASACP and so forth?
So Joy King was the vice president of Wicked Pictures, where I was under contract for 17 years. And she was very involved. Wicked as a whole was very involved in the free speech coalition that stands up for First Amendments and all of that stuff. And so it started very organically. I was signed to a company that was already heavily involved in things like that. Once I was under contract with them, it was sort of expected of their contract girls to be the face people of the company. I was a little more passionate about it than some of the other girls, just to toot my own horn for a second, a little more well-spoken. So Joy, they started bringing me on to, do the endorsements, do the commercials and things for that. And I learned, I'll be honest, when I first got involved, I didn't really know very much about it, but the more I learned, the more passionate I felt about it. So I kept doing it. After I left Wicked a couple years ago, I actually did a stint for a year under contract with Deja Vu, which is like the hustler clubs, Deja Vu, strip clubs. And I was their lobbyist for a while. And I I lobbied in Washington to get rights for the dancers there. And I did a rally here in Louisiana, up in Baton Rouge, because they wanted to change the legal age to dance for female strippers to 21. Well, I think it should, I fought all the reasons why it should be 18, but specifically, why is it okay for a male dancer to be 19, but the women have to be 21? And there's a lot there, but that's, to answer your question, like that's how it got started.
Joy's really cool too. I've had the pleasure of communicating and corresponding with her over the years too. It's funny you mentioned that, just being, a little naive to everything. When I first reached out to the Free Speech Coalition, just being like a hip hop, even kind of a hip hop guy, I just interpreted it as, oh, this is free speech. This is, this is kind of all encompassing. And then when I found out that it was, primarily focused on adult entertainment, I wasn't taken aback by it at all, but I was like, oh, this is something different. But when I explained that to Joy, she was super cool about it. And yeah, she really, helped me get the ball rolling on some of the writing that I did, early on in my career. You use your platform and your kind of public figure status to not only, arouse, so to speak, with your work in adult film, but also just raise awareness. Not everybody does that.
That's true.
And kind of on that note, you were also awarded with a day, May 23rd, Stormy Daniels Day in West Hollywood. What are your thoughts and feelings about receiving that honor?
I mean, it was pretty surreal. It was at the very beginning of that whole like media storm and I was just completely overwhelmed and blown away. I was so nervous. I wasn't really used to speaking in front of people yet. But I'll tell you, they gave me this really cool big key. Mm-hmm. And immediately after that, I went to Miami for work, and then I stayed an extra day, and I put it on a chain and wore it like Flavor Flav for like 4 days, naked in the pool.
That's hip hop.
I was just like, there's pictures of me like on a giant inflatable unicorn naked, except for this big key. But, West Hollywood is known for its, gay community. So I feel like me on a rainbow unicorn with the key, I feel like they would have been very supportive of this. Well,
no, that as the saying goes, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
It's pretty funny.
And I know I touched on this a little bit before. Like I said, I really enjoyed your autobiography. Were you pleased with the reception of it? And what was it like writing it and putting it all together? I imagine it was quite a process.
So I actually started writing that book about 10 years ago, and it was originally supposed to be called Why Me? It was just a collection of all the crazy stuff that's happened. I've been keeping crazy notes and notebooks. People think that an adult set is just the wildest place. They think it's like boogie nights, and it's actually pretty boring. It's very professional. There's a lot of paperwork, so much paperwork. The craziest stuff happened in strip clubs. I mean, there's alcohol and strangers, and it's dark, and there's titties everywhere, so people don't know how to act. So my craziest stories actually were like had happened over the years doing strip clubs. So I had all these notes taken, and like, yes, Donald Trump was going to always be in my book, but he was going to be like a page in this crazy story. And then when all of this transpired, no publisher was really interested. They really, really wanted to make it more of a autobiography, like going all the way back to childhood. So that was very intimidating and very daunting to really dig into some of that darker stuff, which I was hesitant because I didn't want people to be like, oh, that's why she got into porn. I didn't want to perpetuate those ideas and those stereotypes. But the only way to get my story out there was to do that. Like I had to give them what they wanted so that I could get what I wanted. And they actually cut out a lot of the really funny stuff to focus more on the childhood stuff and the abuse stuff. And then, I always am amazed that we were able to stretch the worst 90 seconds of my life into a full chapter in a fucking book. But here we are. The writing of it itself was very intense. I think I had 4 or 5 weeks start to finish to get it out.
Oh, wow.
And I was on tour at the time. I was on the bus doing a different appearance every night. So I didn't have time to physically type everything. Luckily, I had my notes from like the last 10 or 15 years. So they flew a really great guy out, and he recorded everything and transcribed it and did the editing and the fact checking. But it's funny because I just did it so fast that I kind of forgot what was in it. And now when I pick it up and read it, I'm like, oh my God, it's so obvious that I actually wrote it. Because a lot of people think that, somebody just told the story, but anybody who's had a conversation with me was like, oh no, that's her. I say fuck a lot. I'm like, I was like, my book sounds like it was written by a trucker. Oh yeah, that was me. But it was really well received, but I wasn't prepared for people to really want to graphically talk about the sexual childhood abuse and stuff like that. The very first interview I gave, the book wasn't even technically out yet. It was coming out like 2 or 3 days later, so it wasn't available to the public, but obviously press and reviewers and things like that got advanced copies. And I did 60 Minutes Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And sit down, the lady with the interview was very lovely. You can find it on YouTube. It was a pretty great interview. But the first thing, you know, other than, hi, nice to meet you, other than the pleasantries was, so what was it like to be raped when you were 9? I was like I was just not prepared to deal with that, you know?
No transition.
No. And so it was really, really hard for me for like 6 or so months, you know, like I just wasn't prepared for the onslaught of that and digging up these memories that I hadn't had in, you know, 30 years. But then I started getting, and I was like, why did I put that in? I should have left it out. Like it was the only intimate part of me that people didn't know. Like I shouldn't have done it. What was I fucking thinking? Now I'm just like a hot mess all the time. But then I started really getting the messages and emails and stuff from people who read it and said like, oh, this happened to me. And I faced my accuser, or I stood up to my boss, or I pressed charges. I feel like I helped so many people that I made the right choice. And some of the 2 most shocking messages I got were from people that I actually know. And one of them is a friend, and it's a girl that I would never think would be like in an abusive situation because she's kind of a bad bitch. I wouldn't fight her. You know what I mean? Like she's a bad motherfucker. And she told me the story of something that happened to her in college. And it was really mind blowing. And the other message I got was from somebody that I grew up with that had been molested by a family member. And I knew this person very, very well. And the surprising fact about the story that they shared with me was it was a male, you know? So I was getting messages from we always think that only women can be abused or raped or whatever. And this is a guy that I grew up with and I knew, and he went on to be in the military and all of these things. And it was a guy, you know, and that really kind of opened my eyes. So it was like this for a while, but now I feel like I made the right choice.
So ultimately, would you say including that was a cathartic experience for you?
Oh, 100%, you know, and now we're in the stage where I'm not getting what I'm owed for it, because we all know that my fucking ex-attorneys forged my signature and wired the money to himself. So I haven't gotten the rest of my money from my book. You know, I have no idea how much I'm owed because he was siphoning all my royalties to his health. And he's obviously, we know with Michael Avenatti, he's in jail now with Nike, and I'm supposed to face him in court in January, and I'm going to win. Like I have his the FBI is on my side. Like he forged my signature and committed wire fraud. So, but it's still a process, you know, and I'm still dealing with it. I'm just like, will this ever just be over? So, you know, there are those days where I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? I should have just backed down. And then I'm like, no, fuck it. I'm here. Fight me. In the meantime, buy my CBD products so I can keep paying my attorney.
In addition to your CBD stuff, what's next for you? I know you're doing the Surreal Life.
Yeah, we did the Surreal Life. We filmed it in Mexico last July. And the latest update that I have is it's going to air in January.
Okay.
So I can't give you any spoilers, but you know, the cast can be found online, and we were locked in a house for almost 2 weeks in Mexico, and it got intense, you know, like I think it really, some people are not going to be pleased with how they look, how they come out. And other than that, you know, I'm doing my Spooky Babes paranormal show. I live here in New Orleans. You know, my partner that is on the show with me, my co-star, his name is Justin Loop. He's a Reiki practitioner. So I do oracle card readings. We go in and Clint's house, paranormal investigation stuff. And we filmed 13 episodes of our show. And we did sign a deal, but I can't tell you who it's with, but it's going to start airing next year as well. But we've been doing that. I spent the night in the Lizzie Borden house. I spent the night in the Conjuring house, Velisca Axe Murder house, all of these crazy, like super famous paranormal places. We actually went, you know, I lived on a tour bus for a year and a half with Justin and my film crew, and we've just been to all these places, and we've got some pretty crazy evidence, you know, stuff that rivals, you know, the biggest paranormal shows on TV by far. You can go on YouTube and watch all of our, our trailer and our teaser. It's Spooky. All of our social media for the paranormal stuff is Spooky Babes Show. So that's our Instagram, our TikTok, our, and the trailer and all that stuff is on YouTube, and you should totally check it out because it's pretty cool, if I must say so myself. And I produced it and directed it myself.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
What's your, as a performer, writer, and director, do you have a favorite between those three?
It's very close between writing and directing. I like directing because I like to be the puppet master. And if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. And everyone has to do what I say. So that's kind of good for my ego. But at the end of the day, if I have to pick one thing, I would say writer. Because it doesn't matter how great of a director you are, if the script sucks, you can only polish a turd so much. You know what I mean? People, I get asked a lot, usually by adult industry reporters, what's your favorite award you ever won? And I've won a lot of best director, a lot of director of the year, but I always say I won, best screenplay. And they're always like, what? Your most, I have like 40 AVN and Expos awards and stuff. And they're like, out of all your awards, you're most proud of your screenplay award, not your best sex scene or best actress, or I'm like, nope, best screenplay, because that actually took brains.
What's your favorite screenplay that you've written? Was it the one you won the award for?
No, actually, it wasn't. So I think my favorite one that I wrote was the big Western that I did. It's called Wanted. Yeah, it was by Wicked Pictures and Adam and Eve. And my movie Curse of Black Bayou, which is a horror movie that I wrote many years ago that still hasn't been released. It still hasn't been shot. I'm still trying to get funding for that. But that takes place in Louisiana after a hurricane. And I wrote it in 2009. And that's my passion project. Yeah, I still dance. Yes, I do stand-up comedy. Yes, I wrote a book. Yes, I have a CBD thing now. Yes, I do ghost hunting. And I do a lot of shit. But if somebody said, what's your one thing? What's your one goal? And it's to get the funding to direct that horror movie. And I've directed, 150 adult films, 7 or 8 music videos, but that's that elusive project that's, if I could pick one thing, that's what I want to do.
So one of the things you had mentioned earlier about your book and writing, and you just mentioned stand-up comedy. What are some of the funny stories that they left out of your book?
Oh, see, I used all those in my stand-up show.
Oh,
but I mean, it's really just the craziest stuff that happened to me in strip clubs, or just crazy fan interactions. I always tell a story about the guy who broke into my hotel room and didn't take any money, didn't take any of my jewelry. This is so gross. You don't really want to know. I caught him. He stole a tampon from the trash and was making tea.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's wow.
Yeah. Now I'm not really that surprised they took that out of the book. But yeah, I talk about some of the funny stuff that happened on set, like a girl who didn't understand that you were supposed to put the douche in your vagina and not drink it. There's a whole there's a whole setup and funny story of that I tell on stage when I do stand up. But
do you talk about Trump at all in your set?
So I try not to, because I don't think I need to. It's not a crutch, but it always happens because I do my show and it's about 35 minutes. It's, I just get up there and talk and whatever. But the last half of the show, when people walk into the clubs, they're given a note card and a pen and they can write questions. And during my show, my assistant picks up the cards and at the end hands them to me and I cold read them. I don't know what they're going to be and I answer them. And that's my favorite part of the show. It basically almost becomes a live version of my Twitter because some people are real fucking dicks. And that's my favorite. I make them regret their life choices since fucking kindergarten. But inevitably, what is everybody going to ask me? It's, and it's amazing. It doesn't matter what club I'm in, what city I'm in, what the demographic of the crowd is, whether it's, at least 4 or 5 people ask me about Trump's dick. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? But I get it. I'm like, here's another one. So why I don't need to talk about it. I let the audience talk about it and then I just answer their questions because.
Yeah, all I'll say is I'll never look at the game Mario Kart the same way again.
I know, right? I got so much hate mail from that. I single-handedly ruined people's Mario Kart from childhood and mushroom farming in one sentence.
As a West Coast hip hop site, one other question I have to ask is, how did it all come about when you got on stage with YG and did the Fuck Donald Trump song and the whole exchange with him? What's the story behind that?
Oh gosh, okay, how did that happen? I thought you were gonna ask me about Tech Nine.
Well, that was my next question, so I'll let you just kind of
so
roll one right into the
The
other.
YG thing is, I had heard the song. Obviously, they play it when I'd walk into places. His management just called my management. I wish I had a more exciting story, like we were, trapped somewhere together in an elevator and hooked up, but it's not that exciting. His management called mine and said, like, hey, how does she feel about the song? And he was playing, the big show. It was sold out at Dodger Stadium, and I was going to be in town, and it just we went from there. I got there. I didn't know they actually wanted me to have the whole rapport at the beginning. And we just standing on the side of the stage. He's like, I'm going to do this. Are you cool with it? I'm like, fuck yeah, but expect me to give it back. And he was like, you cool, let's do this.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. I'm really happy I did it. It was a lot of fun. They were really cool. I wish I had a better story, but I'm glad I did it.
What's up with Tech Nine?
He was playing a show at one of my favorite venues called The Rave in Milwaukee. And I had a day off and the tour bus stopped, and my good friend Tommy from the band Ten Low is a bartender there. And he was like, just come see me at work. We have Tech Nine tonight. And I was like, cool. And, my bodyguards were super excited to go see him and check him out. So we went, and he found out I was there, and it came over the radios, like, is she really here? Yeah. He was on stage in his set. I was in the bathroom peeing. And I was like, I'll never forget this. I was on the toilet in the ladies' room, and I was like, is he saying my name? He was on stage, like, calling me out. And obviously my guys knew where I was at, and they're pounding on the bathroom door, and they like grab me, and my two bodyguards are huge, and they have me over their head, and they run through the crowd and put me on stage. And I was like, oh my God, I hope my pants are zipped.
I know we've covered a lot. It's been great talking to you. I know you gotta get going. Is there anything else that you want to add or comment on that we haven't touched on, or that you want to comment on anymore?
I don't know. This is where I get myself into trouble, because I don't know when to shut up, obviously. But I think we did good. Just, I want to tell everybody thank you for the support. I guess, it's been a little difficult because once Biden was in office, everybody has kind of PTSD from the Trump years. And so everybody took a collective sigh of relief, but I'm still here and I'm still fighting. So, I always appreciate the support. So the best way to help me keep fighting and see this thing to the end is, go to perfectstormy.com, check out the products, and, go to Spooky Babes stuff and watch the show when it comes out, book readings from me, Reiki from my partner, Justin, and, keep fighting the good fight. I'm still here.
Could you do me a favor and give us a drop for West Coast Styles?
Okay. Hey, this is Stormy Daniels, and I want to say thanks so much for checking out westcoaststyles.com.
What time is it? Okay, we have some fabulous live music later on, but right now, here's the kind I prefer.